the service of firsts, I began to think about what I could do on this first Sunday of the year for a sermon. I began to do some research. I guess that any sermon I do on this day can be considered my first sermon of 2012, but I wanted to do something else a little more creative. So I did some research and I found some old sermons. I can say that word now, old sermons. I found my first, what I called my first real sermon that I actually preached while I was in high school some 40 years ago. I still have it. I preached at University United Methodist Church, filling in for the pastor who was there by the name of Jack Bremer. That's my home church, and I was helping him one summer do some things, and he asked me to preach for him, and I did. I came across the first sermon I preached while I was in college. That was as a youth minister at the Lawrence First United Methodist Church about 35 years ago. Then I found my first sermon that I preached as a pastor of a church from the pulpit on July 5th, 1981, some 30 years ago at the Troy United Methodist Church, my first appointment as a pastor. Well, I pulled that sermon out and I looked it over. And I realized that there was still something in it that maybe even we might want to hear today. You and I begin our 11th calendar year together. Today, as pastor and congregation, my 10th appointment year, and it has been quite a journey. So the first sermon I want to share with you on this first Sunday of the new year is that first sermon I preached at Troy on July 5th of 1981. I have done my best not to change it too much, and it's very tempting, let me tell you. There's some things I want to add to it and say a little different and pontificate on and modify. Other than shorten it a bit, because we've got communion this morning, I basically want to present it to you. And I want to let you mentally insert the words Silver Lake United Methodist Church wherever you hear the words Troy United Methodist Church. And I want to see if you think there's some fit today for this sermon that I preached at Troy that I'm now preaching in Silver Lake some 30 years later. I have a couple disclaimers before I begin. On June 7th, before that July sermon that I preached, I actually preached at Troy. Kind of a strange deal, but the pastor was going to be gone. The district superintendent knew I was coming there in July and asked me to fill in for a Sunday in June. The reason I tell you that is because that sermon in June was based on the scripture that Angela read this morning from 1 Samuel, the story of the Ark of the Covenant, and how the Ark of the Covenant was led by God to go to the place it was supposed to be. And that nothing happened chance, but God led the cart as God was supposed to lead the cart. And I refer to that in the sermon that I preached on July 5th, the later sermon. Second disclaimer is, I hope that after the service today, even if you're telling a bit of a fib, tell me that I preach a little bit better, just a little bit better than I did 30 years ago. Here's the sermon from July 5th of 1981. If I had to give a title to this sermon, it would be a familiar saying to many of you. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. For all of us here, there have been many first days. Some of them are a bit hard to remember, aren't they? And they get a little harder to remember the older we get. Others are very easy to remember. We don't remember our first day of life. that maybe those that loved us and brought us into the world remember that day and have told us about it. Maybe it's the first day that we talked. Again, we don't remember that, but we may hear stories about what we said. Or the first day we walked and took those steps. The first day of school. Some of us have pictures of that day. My mom took a slide. In those days we took slides. And I'm standing there in front of the house on my first day of kindergarten. And I have my nap mat right there under my arm. And my hair slicked back. And I am ready for my first day of kindergarten. Maybe it was the first time away from home. Maybe it was the first day on a new job. Maybe it was the first day of marriage. Maybe it was the first day of a particularly memorable vacation that you remember. Maybe it was your first day of retirement. Now, on July 5th of 1981, we were celebrating the first day of our nation, the birth of our nation. All of our firsts have something similar. We want to do it right. We want it to be a good experience, because if it isn't, we panic. We think, you mean it's going to be like this the rest of the time? We always want our firsts to be a good experience. When I preached here in Troy on June 7th, I talked about the seemingly runaway cart of our lives. Sometimes that cart never seems more out of control than on the first day of something. Where are we going? What's going to happen? What's this going to be like? But the good news was and is that God is involved in the directions of our carts, our lives, through people, through experiences, in the church, with our loved ones, with our friends, and other ways. Today, officially, my cart has rolled to Troy, Kansas, for a new start, a new beginning, a first for all of us. We are all experiencing a first today. This is the first time that I have pastored this church, and this is the first time that you will have received me as your pastor. And it's important on this day for us to affirm that we are all in this together. I like to combine scripture verses. I like to think about the Bible as a whole, and because I think ministry in a church is a combination of things, a whole combination of things. And as we begin this new journey together, I want to share with you a little of my philosophy of ministry and the church. The ministry is a specific task that requires specific knowledge and specific training and a lot of humbleness. A friend once told me about being in a humble stance as a pastor. I thought a lot about this sermon that I'm preaching, that it is important as my first sermon, and rather than give you a slick, theologically perfect product, I've decided to share with you some important elements of ministry and being a pastor. And I hope that you can relate to them in some way. And here they are. For me, ministry together, congregation and pastor, means that I would hope to be ready to lead and at the same time ready to follow you. It means that I would hope to be ready to suggest changes and also ready to serve needs, whatever those needs might be. It means I would hope to be ready to reach out, to take the initiative, and yet at the same time hold back, be patient, and wait. It means I would hope to be ready to preach and ready to listen for direction. It means I would hope to be prepared to pray with someone at any moment, and also to spend time alone in prayer with my God. It means I would hope to be ready to visit and ready to accept visitors with open arms. It means I would hope to be ready to work with you and to play with you. It means I would hope to be ready to challenge you and ready to comfort you. And it means that I would hope to be ready to share whatever talents and gifts I might bring. And at the same time, ready to admit my own shortcomings. What does this mean for the congregation of the Troy United Methodist Church? One thing it means is we're here to experience each other's firsts in life, which can actually be every day, if that's the way we look at life. Today is the first day of the rest of our lives. Every day the gospel message can provide us a new way to look at life, new hope. This can be a time of excitement, a new beginning, new opportunities for you and for me, for this church and for our ministry together. I want to ask you for 4 things today that I believe I will need as I begin this journey with you. First, I need your support. And specifically, I need it in the area of worship. Worship is not a spectator sport. It is an opportunity for you to cooperate in the preaching and the worship event. The success of any sermon depends really on both of us. Now, I'm not trying to escape my responsibility to preach a sermon, but without you, without your feedback, sermons really are nothing. Your feedback and the need for that brings us to the second need. You provide me with the source material from which I will build my sermons and ministry here. Already I have experienced your warmness in many ways as you have welcomed me. By communicating and sharing, we can explore the gospel and what it can mean in our lives. The third need. I want to hear your needs and respond as best I can. I want to share with you your joys and your pains. And I want to challenge you. And I want to comfort you. And lastly, I ask for your patience as I continue to learn. I also ask for your respect, though. I expect guidance. I expect you to be honest with me when I express an opinion that does not agree with you. We have both been given the freedom to challenge each other, and it is a freedom for which growth can occur. In closing, I'd like to read a short passage to you from Jurgen Moltmann's book, The Passion for Life. I read it as a challenge to myself and to us as a congregation. One side note, this particular book, Jurgen Moltmann, is a German theologian, and this particular book was one of my favorite during seminary. And I was appointed to Troy during my seminary, my 3 years at St. Paul Seminary, and this book was my second Bible. I liked the theology and I liked the title, The Passion for Life. And Moltmann talks a lot about individual theology and individual spirituality. But on this particular day, I shared words about the congregation and what ways a congregation are called to be, according to Moltmann. Let me share these words with you. We're no longer individualists, but a congregation in which one accepts the other in the way that one has already been accepted by Christ. The old and very bleak principle, birds of a feather flock together, is then no longer valid. Instead, people who are radically different take pleasure in and accept each other. Christian community then no longer means only to sit next to those with whom I agree, but also to sit next to those with whom I do not agree. Functioning with this meaning of community, we would no longer come together in order to confirm for each other the eternally same stories, jokes, and opinions. but would rather create an open and hospitable community which would bring friendliness into the unfriendly corners of this society. Congregation then is no longer the sum of all those who are registered as members of the church rolls. Congregation is rather a new kind of living together for human beings that affirms these things: that no one is alone with his or her problems, that no one has to conceal his or her disabilities, that there are not some who have the say and others who have nothing to say, that neither the old nor the little ones are isolated, that one bears the other even when it is unpleasant and there is no agreement, and that finally the one can also at times leave the other one in peace when the other one needs it. Does this open congregation of acceptance exist? We would be in a terrible situation if it stood before us only as a biblical-based demand. If we open our eyes, we can also experience it in the power of the Spirit in our very midst. Whoever seeks, finds. Would you bow in prayer with me?